There we go.
Got all my stuff.
You guys are killing me. I've got my other 9 in the other room, but I just got one right here.
And you got the OG ones, Bear, of course.
So what's that mean? What's OG? Sorry.
Well, you have the Bear. You
The
have
original.
the original where Gabriel and I have the. Was this the reprint?
This is second edition.
Second edition, and does the second edition have different notes in it and stuff too?
Yeah, the footnotes are updated and stuff like that. Yeah.
And mine are signed by Anastasia.
Oh, I've got some Megre signed ones, but I can't.
Are they
show
really?
it to you.
Are they
But
really,
you-
Bear?
You can't believe me because I can't show you. But
She visits the farm here regularly.
Yeah,
I believe that.
I am in love with her. I will say.
I got her picture right here.
Oh, she is amazing. We're gonna go deep into it. We're live right now. Hey, Bear, how's my sound? I was a little hot last week. I apologize, guys. My whole system had gotten reset up, and I don't have that. We ordered an awesome mixing board, so I will be more pro soon. But how do I sound, Bear? Am I too hot or am I okay?
No, you're actually better. And also with the new mixing board, you'll use the old what's the cloud thing, to get a little bit of a boost, so you can lower the gain and get better sound. So combination with that with the Rode caster is good. I always have to coach Mike on technical things now. You know how the younger generation is not.
Oh no,
savvy
those guys
with that
don't
kind
get
of
it. Yeah.
We don't get it. We rely on the boomers to show us the way.
That's right.
Well, I got to give props to Bear. Given his age, which is he's a young spry man, but dude,
that sounds kind of like a backhanded compliment there, Mike.
But
hey, I know how to email and everything.
Well, no, beyond that, he's got way better tech than I do.
Your setup looks so good, Dr. Lando.
He's up on the tech, man. Like always, I'm always asking him what the newest stuff is. So mad props.
I've got the good shit in the room here. I don't know how to use any of it, but it looks impressive.
It's all for show.
Bear, do you know what this tech is?
Oh, yes.
Absolutely. Oh, yeah. I want to buy one of those. Patrick Timponi is going to hook me up with that.
That's so funny.
So how long
we were
have you
literally
had
talking
yours?
about that on Telegram yesterday. Yeah.
Just under a year.
Yeah, no, I love that. Cool. So do you breathe as well as drink and everything?
Yeah, I do.
Nice.
I do.
Yeah. That's my next big toy I'm gonna get.
Yeah, it's helpful for sure.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, guys, I'm going to hit record because this is going to be a powerful broadcast, and I want to have all the time we can have today. So
let's do it.
We're going to go deep into Anastasia, which is my favorite thing I'm reading right now. So this is very exciting. Here we go. And boom, we're back for another episode of Alfacast. I'm Mike Winter, and I'm here as always with the great Dr. Bear Paul Lando, coming to you live and direct from rainy Northern California, here on the border of California and Oregon, in the great state of Jefferson. Here in the Smith River is flowing hot. It is high, and man, I am loving this right now, Bear. I was talking before the show with Gabriel and Wesley how a few years ago it was in the mid 90s here in May, and right now it's like still almost winter. I know it's not great for agriculture, but I'm loving the cool weather right now, and we are going to go rafting on Saturday, so that's going to be a lot of fun. So but we're still getting the Jalgulans doing okay, right? And it's not like we're getting hard.
Yeah, I'm a little behind. I had everything ready to go. I did an expansion with Charles's, and I've got a few hundred plants that I've been propagating in the greenhouse all winter, and they got to get in the ground. Now I'm a few weeks behind. But, our first year here 7 years ago, we had 186 inches of rain, which is just insanely crazy. And I think they're trying to do it again here. But yeah, all's good.
Yeah, all's good. It's lush and the waterfalls are flowing and no complaints. And we truly live on the land. We're tied to the land, and that's what our topic is going to be about a lot today. We're going deep into Anastasia. This has been one I've been really looking forward to with our guest today. Real quick, just one thing I wanted to say, Bear, is in a couple weeks, at the end of this month, we do have the Music and Sky Gathering. It's coming along really well. If you guys are in the Southern California area or want to come and hang, it's turned out to be an amazing event. We have Paul Enslaved there, Melissa Sell, a bunch of our Alfacast homies are going to be there. And so you can find out more at alphavedic.com/SoCal Freedom Event. SoCal Freedom Event. And that is going to be a wonderful weekend retreat. So check that out. And
we have our first private workshop coming up this summer here at the farm, which is very secret, which is why we aren't mentioning anything about it. We don't want anyone to know about it, but that's coming up. And more and more people are arriving on the land here, and we're going to put on a great event. We'll video that. That'll be some of the content that will be in our private member portal with our new website. And so a lot of fun stuff happening. So
how's the
sorry to talk over you, Mike. And by the way, thank you for the superlatives every week. They keep getting better. And, it's quite a compliment from the golden voice of DoucheTube here. And I appreciate it.
Well, I was just going to ask, how's the Moloch statue coming for that event? Have you
it's good. It's 4 stories high.
Very good. We're going to burn it in effigy. No. Okay, here we go.
That was fun.
we got some awesome guests today. Now I'm all choked up. Moloch's attacking me right now.
But by the way, everybody get your tickets to the Music and Sky Gathering. Go to that.
Yeah, Wesley, I hope you're going, man. You're a local. You're down there.
Yeah, I really have to make it. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, awesome. Well, hey, today, the ancient wisdom of Anastasia. The founders of the Anastasia Foundation bring their spiritual teachings of Anastasia and the Ringing Cedars series on this very special episode today. Excuse me. In 1995, a business trip took Vladimir Megre to the Siberian taiga, where he witnessed incredible spiritual phenomena connected with sacred ringing cedar trees. He spent 3 days with a woman named Anastasia, who shared with him her unique outlook on subjects as diverse as gardening, child rearing, healing, nature, sexuality, religion, and much, much more. This wilderness experience transformed Vladimir so deeply that he abandoned his commercial plans and, penniless, went to Moscow to fulfill Anastasia's request and write a book about the spiritual insights she so generously shared with him. True to her promise, this life-changing book, once written, has become an international bestseller and has touched hearts of millions of people worldwide. On this episode of Alfacast, we are joined by Gabriel Miguel and Wesley Wittkamper, the founder and the strategic partnerships director of the Anastasia Foundation, the largest English-speaking Ringing Cedars network. Through the Anastasia Foundation, Gabriel and Wesley are spearheading the establishment of the Motherland Party, as introduced by Anastasia and her grandfather in the Ringing Cedars of Russia series. Quote, "When the nation is comprised of a multitude of families giving birth to their children in love and creating a space of love, it will not suffer from lawlessness or inflation. Such a nation will have no need to fight against criminal tendencies. They will disappear from society." Quote. The motherland concept is by no means a novel idea, for it is the original intention of our realm. The Alphavedic Cooperative is establishing an infrastructure prototype for sustainable decentralization, reproducible in every locale, while the Motherland Party provides the ideological and spiritual engine through the teachings of Anastasia. Couldn't be more excited about this episode and look forward to a long-term relationship and alignment between the Anastasia Foundation and Alphavedic. We are really kindred spirits here, Bear, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. And Gabriel and Wesley, thank you so much for making time with us today. I'm really looking forward to this. I got into the Anastasia books, I don't know, pretty much when they were first released in this country. And I mean that, when I was writing that up last night, here at Alphavedic, we're building an infrastructure and all the stuff that we always talk about. But, behind it, you've got to have some mana and some philosophy, ideology. And, I think that's really what you guys are bringing to the table, as well as a lot of, structural elements as well. But we recognize that, we're leading with permaculture and a lot of the things we talk about, because that's pretty much what attracts people that are just more entry level. But, when you get into it, that to us means, that's the first way we reconnect to spirit, reconnect to nature. And of course, that's what Anastasia is all about. So it's amazing what you people are doing. What I'd like to do is give a little bit of I don't know if it's different perspective, but some perspective. For whatever reason, since early on in my life, I had this kind of fascination with Russia, with the motherland of Russia. And it was just always there. I was, even as a kid, I was always fascinated with everything Russia. I'd look at it on the maps. To this day, I watch videos, in the Siberian outback and everything. There's just something there. When Dr. Zhivago first came out, and, I was in high school, I watched it 4 times, and, but there's a connection between Russia and North America that is unmistakable. And Russia, unbeknownst to people amidst all the political fog right now, is really our sister country. And they have been there for us in a lot of ways. And there's a very definite reason why in 1917, the global forces of the dark that are now very active against Russia again, focused on Russia, took the Tsar family out, and, have really tried to, make that the focus of communism. And right now they're still trying to come out of it. So there's a long history there. And when we look at current events, there's way more going on than meets the eye. This is an ancient spiritual war, And so when I came across the Anastasia books, it was just, I was delighted because it took me right into, my fantasy of the Siberian outback and original Russian shamans and just the best of all worlds. So this is going to be great. So maybe we could start out, for people that don't know you guys, just give us a little bit of background, maybe how you got into it, the whole party, the Motherland Party, the Anastasia Foundation, and we'll just kind of follow your lead from there.
Sure. Well, first, I want to say thank you guys. You said thanks to us for being here, but I want to say thank you for you guys for inviting us here to share this message. And I wanted to say I have a lot of respect for the both of you and your sincerity and dedication to bringing truth to everybody. So thank you for what you guys do, and thank you for letting us be here. And there's so much to say. I think your attractions to Russia, that's probably a past life thing there. If you're inexplicably drawn to this place, maybe you're from there, and you're here to bring that way of life to this part of the world. There's so much to say. I mean, and especially about the political situation in Russia. I was just talking with Wesley before we got on the phone, got on this call. And I was telling him that they're passing a law right now. It's in the Duma, which is like the Senate or the House of Russia, for kins domains for the entire country. And kins domains, for those who don't know, we're going to get into it in a bit, but it's 2.5 acres of land unconditionally for any willing family in Russia, in the entire country, across the entire nation. And so they're voting on that right now. And that all comes from the Ringing Cedars books.
It already exists in some regions in Russia. They have the Homestead Act in some regions already, which is influenced by the Anastasia books.
Marvelous.
Did Gabriel freeze up on us maybe there?
Okay. I was frozen.
There we go.
You were frozen.
My bad.
And Gabriel, your mic's a little hot still.
It's a little hot.
Yeah.
All right. So let's try to do something about this. I apologize, guys.
Oh, all good. I just want our viewers to have the best experience. But
How about now? Is it any different? Does it matter?
It's a little better. But go ahead. I can always fix it in post too. I didn't want to.
Oh man,
You're in a good flow right now.
I've got it set to automatically adjust. Let me.
Oh, that's why. Yeah, turn that off.
Turn it off. Turn the game down. How about that?
Oh, now you're way low.
Way low. How about now? How about now?
There we go. Good.
Is that good, guys?
Yeah.
All right.
Sweet.
So you gave a bit of the background of what the Ringing Cedars books are, and maybe I can start there. Maybe for people who don't know. So the Ringing Cedars books, as Mike was saying, is the story of this Russian entrepreneur, Vladimir Megre. He goes out and he meets this woman, Anastasia, in the taiga, and she's telling him She's a survivor of an ancient civilization, global culture that has lived separately from our culture since basically the beginning of time. It's called the Vedrus civilization. And she has genetic memory and abilities and access to all these things all the way back to like Adam and Eve, you know. And so she's a shining example of what a real human being made in God's image is supposed to look like. And she's retained all these divine abilities and knowledge and things. And so she shares with Vladimir about, you know, man's relationship with God. Like, why are we here? Our purpose and relationship with nature. What is the significance of our connection with nature? How do we have love in our families forever? How do we have love that doesn't vanish? How do we turn this world into a beautiful paradise garden, right? She talks about all these wonderful things. So he goes and he writes this book, and she says to him, she says, in the book you're going to write, there will be unobtrusive combinations, formulations made up of letters, and they will arouse in the majority of people good and radiant feelings, capable of overcoming ailments of body and soul, and will facilitate the birth of a new awareness inherent in the people of the future. Believe me, Vladimir, this is not mysticism. It's in accord with the laws of the universe. So he goes, he writes the book, and you know, she talks about all these things, and I'm sure we're going to get into a lot of it, but the main idea of the books is what's called a kin's domain. So the kin's domain is 2.5 acres pieces, a 2.5 acre piece of land where basically, why is it called a kin's domain? Because it's the domain of your kin. You're saying, I'm taking my family line, my ancestors, my descendants, I'm going to settle them all in this spot here and pass down this land generationally forever. I'm going to make this land into a beautiful paradise oasis where I'm going to give birth to children or raise the children that I already have and hand that down to them. And so I actually want to show some pictures and share my screen here, because I put together a bunch of images, and this idea ties into everything else that we're discussing here. So is it cool?
Yeah, you should be able to share. And just to be clear, what is her heritage again? What is her people called again?
Her people are called the Vedrus. So Vedic Rus, you know.
Yes.
Yeah, and so a lot of people talk about Tartaria, for example, but I would say this is even before and deeper and broader. Then she talks about the history of the whole world, and she says the Vedrus people were all the way from England to China, everything in between, one people, and they all lived on kin's domains, and she called them God people. And she said they knew God and they lived in this divine culture, and the world was unified at that time. And the Vedrus culture died out about 2,000 years ago, lastly in Russia. That's where it held up the last.
Yeah,
but
we have a guest.
Jesus, it was still there.
Sorry, just quick comment. We have a
Please.
guest coming up, Jason from Archaics, who's done amazing research as far as the history of everything you're talking about. So we're going to be getting into the genetics of, different peoples throughout the world, different civilizations, present a true timeline that's, even Sitchin and people like that were a little bit off or a lot off. And, also explain why maybe the roots of somebody like Anastasia, blonde hair, type individual out in the Siberian outback, and how all those peoples came about in the first place. So that's going to be fun. So I'm eager to kind of hear all of this and then integrate it with some of the material we're going to be going in on here.
Yeah, I see it as the Tartarian kind of tried to bring back that technology a bit, and they were like a later phase that then got wiped out in these resets. But yeah, fascinating stuff. Thanks for answering that. Yeah,
it seems to be from my limited perspective of Tartaria, it seems to be post-Vedic, like Vedrus period, because she goes back 10,000 years and further, and she says that period of time lasted a very long time, the Vedrus civilization, up until like 2,000 years ago. But anyway, so talking about the kin's domain, I'm going to share my screen here and describe to you a bit about what this is. So here we go. Can you guys see that?
Yep, it's coming.
Beautiful. So the kin's domain, this is an artistic drawing that somebody in Russia drew. And by the way, the books have sold more than 30 million copies worldwide, been translated into more than 22, 25 languages. So international bestsellers. It's mainly in Russia. And what the Kin's domain is a 2.5 acre piece of land where, you know, I was talking about, you settle your family here, and you build a living fence. So you plant a living fence of trees. 50 to 75% of that 2.5 acres becomes forest. So most likely a food forest and other productive species. Then you have your orchard, you have a garden, you build a house, you dig a pond, and you do all these things. And yeah, so that's what the domain is. But the interesting thing is that it's so much more than just like a homestead. It's not really a homestead. It's about, why 2.5 acres specifically? It's because that is the right size piece of land where you can interact directly with everything that's growing. So it's about a spiritual connection to God through the nature that you are creating, right? So there's a lot to say here. Here are some more images that people have drawn, you know, beautiful artistic depictions and things. But here are this is another piece of art that really kind of gives the vibe of what we're going for here. You know, the mother and father with their child in this beautiful paradise kind of oasis here. But here are some real ones. This is from Russia. You know, this is what they look like from above. There's a million different kinds of ways that people can go about establishing their domains. So they all look very different. There's a whole bunch of ways that it can happen. But yeah, I mean, I want to go back here because it's also about, you know, I'm talking about giving birth to children on this domain and handing down the land to them. So Anastasia talks about preserving love in families. So she says that a man and woman who meet each other can take the initial love that they feel in their heart. They plan this inspired design, which is kind of materializing their love, right? They go take this piece of land, they give a material embodiment to their love, to their spirituality. And when they plant these trees, when they plant these flowers, when they plant this place and they build this house, that energy gets reflected back at them in this space. And so you wind up creating what she calls a space of love, right? It's a place where the conditions are met for love to dwell eternally, right? So why does love go away in our families? Big problem, right? Why do so many people get split up? Why is there so much discord in our families? It's because we don't live in the places, in the conditions where love can flourish, right? And so, but this is creating the ideal conditions for love to stay in a family, right? And for the children to be raised in an environment of love, right? And also connecting with God through nature. She says that, you know, to understand the thoughts of, to be one with God and to understand God, you understand his creations. God has taken a material form throughout the entire universe. There's all these different things. He just doesn't have a body, but he is the trees, he's the grass, he's the flowers and everything. And you can interact with all these things, understand the perfection of nature. You can understand God, be one with God. So it's about communicating with the universe, with God through this nature, right? So here's another happy family living on their domain. Here is a little design of the living fence, of the beauty of it, but also the utility, you know. Here is,
so the idea with the living fence is that you have a perimeter around the 2.5 acres that's a hedgerow or a tree line that defines your boundaries, but it's through it's a natural boundary. It's not an actual built fence.
Exactly. Yeah. So you don't have to do any maintenance on it. You know, just make sure your trees aren't going crazy. But in general, it can be productive for you. It can give berries and flowers and, you know, fragrances and nuts and all these things. You know, you can be as creative as you want with it. Here's a house that somebody built. This is a hand-built house. This is the same domain from above. This one's pretty well established. I think it's about a decade old, maybe a bit older.
I wish we had some aerial views of the AV gardens because it's very similar the way that Barry
actually we do. The footage that David Icke took last summer, that's going to be out in a documentary here anytime. There's a lot of drone footage, and I was just one of your earlier pictures, it had some spiral borders around a planting bed. And when you see the aerial photographs of our place, it's all spirals and sacred geometry and, different numbers of things to create resonance. So I picked up on that one of your first slides there. That's great.
Yep. And so these are all from Russia, by the way. These are all from pretty well-established kins domains and things like that. So this is what I have of the individual domains so you guys can get a view. But then the second thing is the settlements. So what happens when hundreds of families get together and they all build their own kins domain, right? They say, I'm going to take this space, I'm going to establish this space, and all of us have the same intention. 350 families come together and they build a settlement. It could be anything from 5 families all the way up to 400 or whatever. In Russia, there is almost 500 settlements. The largest ones, like I said, like 400 plus families. They've been around, the oldest ones, more than 2 decades already. They've given birth to lots of children. They've planted tons of trees and things, as you can see here. They're very big, well-established, and it's a giant movement that's sweeping across Russia, and people don't know. And the other countries of the former Soviet Union, Europe, and America. That's what we're doing here. That's what our foundation is about. We're trying to help people go out and establish these. So this is what they look like from the air. You can see the individual domains here, these little squares. And this is a happy group of settlement people. This is another set of domains from the air. It's just beautiful to see this. And these are some early stage development domains here. But this is really happening. So I really wanted to show you guys, the families are happy, the people are beautiful. It's all about children and babies, and they do festivals and things. They're always celebrating various things.
Yeah, what I love is it's really grounded in this idea, because the kins domain is about having a multi-generational family on the land, right? So it's not this like, we had this big back to the land movement in the 60s and 70s, which we've talked a lot about on the show. And that was more about communes and more about collectivism. This is more about the family unit being decentralized, but then having neighboring families that are all conjoined, where you can work together and you can engage with each other as a community, but you have your own family unit on your own land. Is that correct, Gabriel?
You hit it so perfectly, Mike, that you just said it so well. So there's a huge difference between what we know in the West as like eco-villages and what a kins domain settlement is. So a kins domain settlement is comprised of individual families who are building this space for their family, right? So it's not, they're not coming into this, this whole idea of the settlement just to make a community necessarily. It's like, I'm establishing.
It's nature's canvas for your self-expression and your lineage.
Hey, Wes, you broke up for a second there. What'd you say? It's nature's what?
It's nature's canvas for your self-expression and lineage. And one of the things that would differentiate a kins domain from just your ordinary homestead is that you bury your dead underneath fruit-bearing trees, and then future generations know, oh, that apple is from great grandpa whoever, or great 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 grandpa, is the apple tree out front, and goes on from there.
Right. Yeah, one of the things you do too is you plant your family tree. So it's the tree that kind of symbolizes your family. And Anastasia talks about that the kins domain draws the souls of your ancestors back to that spot, to incarnate in that spot, right? To, the children that are being born are your ancestors from the past. And so I really wanted to get into this part with you guys, but she solves the whole problem of, terrible reincarnations that people go through. She talks about
she's like the ultimate syncretist, by the way. Everything, and I've only read book 1, some of 2, and some of 4, so I got a long way to go. But what I find so amazing about Anastasia so far from my readings is that she ties into everything that as far as gnosis and logos and truth from what I've found through all these other, sources, the Gnostic texts, going back into the ancient Vedics and to the Bible, to the Ascended Masters teachings, to, you just go down the line, and it's all weaving. She weaves everything into this total. You could just tell it's from her direct connection to source, to God, where she's pulling this from, because and I'd love for you to explain a little bit to our audience that doesn't know about her more too down the line, is like, she doesn't even live in a house. She lives on her own kin's domain in a way, I guess, but she doesn't even have structures she lives in. She's basically nude most of the time. She is a superhuman. She's like a superhero.
What's great about works like Anastasia is it's true, everything that you're talking about, Mike, but it's not occulted. A lot of Gnostic books and old teachings, they're occulted for different reasons. But when you get these rare works that are from somebody that's actually connected, just grounded, and just talking from firsthand experience, all of a sudden the Hermetic principles and all the things we talk about are just right there in your face. It's nothing mysterious. It's just a natural way of life.
That's so true. When I first read book 1, that was my experience. I was like maybe a quarter of the way through, and I picked up the book, and I was like, this is the first time in my life that I've read like just undistorted, clear truth, just laid out with no mysticism or anything. It's just all there,
Yeah, I would have to share that in reading the books, one of the first things she says is read these in nature, because nature wakes up to you. What she really paints the whole story as is there's artificial programming, which has been created that most of humanity follows. And then you have natural programming, which is, God's law, AKA it's self-evident. And when you follow the natural, you achieve, the miraculous. When you follow your intuition, you achieve the miraculous. Whereas when you follow the artificial, you just end up, an unknowing slave. And
she mentions this a lot in the book, the technocracy. I mean, she's talking about the technocracy in the 90s, right? When he's with her, she was so ahead of the game, because that's like one of the biggest buzzwords now, right?
In Russia, she's talking about it.
In Russia, and to her, technocracy is anything that is artificial, anything that is mechanized, that is machine. Because and Steiner touches on this too, Rudolf Steiner. The technology of the future will be consciousness organic based. It'll be like what supposedly the Atlanteans had, which was they literally harvest technology from seeds and stuff. So this is where we need to go. And so for Anastasia, that's what she's talking about. She's like, you silly man, your technology is a joke. Everything that you think is so advanced is laughable compared to what real technology is. And she doesn't say technology is bad. She's saying the technocratic system of artificiality.
Right. She says that there is biological technology and there's artificial technology. And here's a good one. She says that all of our space travel is just primitive, right? We only use explosion. She's like, did you know, Vladimir, that there's implosion and like the force that's created by implosion? She's like, that's how the aliens in their spaceships drive around, is with implosion. But then she talks about, because I love the show, because I can get kind of deep with you guys. She talks about in book 10, she talks about the cosmic destiny of man, man in the image of God, creating life on other planets, right? Like our ultimate destiny. How do we bring beauty and life and harmony to the rest of the universe? Why are all those planets there, right? What are they there for? It's for when we eventually go out to go on them and bring life to them, like God gave life to this earth. And so she talks about you can design your kin's domain in a way where it becomes essentially a biological spaceship, where you can use biological, natural technology and consciousness to transport that domain, make a copy of it on another planet, and bring yourself there. She talks about psychotelepathic exploration of planets, like people traveling to other planets and all these. So it gets pretty deep by the end of the series.
That's what Sasquatch does, I think. Just to drop that in.
And it remains to be seen if we're traveling extraterrestrially or if it's actually interdimensionally. And, of course, that's a debate out there these days. But either way, it's the same sort of thing in that we're using our consciousness as the conduit for travel. Where science, where we think of science today, where it took a bad turn was back in the early days of alchemy. The early alchemists who worked in their chemistry labs, they not only mimicked nature, but they were all engaged in healing the body. They were engaged in the healing arts. And so they were always coming at it from that perspective. Then when chemistry, went down just one side of the equation, it was about trying to take energy out of materialism. And, of course, that's led us to all the nuclear business and the technocracy that we're talking about right now. And so, what we're talking about here is just going full circle, only I think this way with an appreciation where maybe we can find a happy medium and not be ruled by our own inventions.
Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, people are saying that my mic is a little...
Yeah, we're still finagling with the mic. It's if you want to bring your mic a little closer, you sound okay to me, but I guess we're loud. So
how about this, Mike? Is this better?
Is that better, everybody in the chat? Sorry. And for those who are, this is the live stream. I always go in and I fix the audio for the podcast, so you can listen to this later as an audio podcast too.
Yeah, guys, I can't see the chat, so I would.
Oh, that sounds much better. Okay,
that's better.
Yeah.
All right, good.
I'll fix this all in post. But yeah, so for me, as someone who appreciates digital technology for what it's giving us right now, even though we're having all these technical difficulties, I see it as a precursor to this grander analog, organic type technology of where we become psychic again, where we have the ability to interface through nature, through structured water, whatnot for communication. And Anastasia, I believe she's already understands all that. And it's just so fun to read her, because it's just like, I resonate there so strongly with everything she says, and how she says we are man. And what she means by that is we are the original creation under God. We are God's children. And in the origin story in book 4, which I was just reading last night, she discusses how, because you're mentioning how this is sort of these kin domains are a manifestation of love. Well, it was love. It was the energetic of love that gave itself to God, according to her, origin story, that which allowed for the universe to then unfold. Right. So the key is love, of course.
Right. Love is our immortality.
Right. Yeah, she talks about immortality, and she says there's 3 conditions for man to be immortal. She says, 1, you need to have a space that the man has created, which attracts the soul of that man back to it. So your space of love, your kin's domain. 2, you need to have at least one person in the world who thinks of you with love. And 3, at the time of your passing, you can't admit the thought of death. You have to visualize and see your life again in that domain. And so you can incarnate back into this little paradise that you've created for yourself forever and ever and ever. And so, love really is our immortality. And on a side note is that she's solved this dilemma that's been a religious problem for thousands of years, which is, how do we end all of our suffering? Do we just end all of our reincarnations? Do you hop off the wheel of reincarnation? Or now can every family go out and establish a kin's domain and come back and live, their soul is at peace now. Like you don't have to fly out into the universe, into the darkness or into suffering or reincarnate back into something terrible. You can come back to your garden, with your family, reincarnation is real. And how do we steer the wheels of that? Right. So we've been given a tool now to do that.
Yeah, that's quite amazing. The idea, there's been a lot of debate in our community around what is the nature of the realm. Is it flat? Is it this? Is it that? In the end, it's like all of that doesn't matter when you focus on this kind of concept, where it's much more than physical shape. It's about spirit. It's about emotion. It's about family. It's about extending consciousness out. And she says it in very interesting ways, where she basically says the center of the universe is man, is these kin domains in a way.
Yeah, she says the earth is the center of the universe. And she says that there's no more pleasing action that a man or a woman or anybody can take that's pleasing to God than to establishing their domain. Because really, if you think about it, that's how God made the universe and made the earth, is that it was in his thought at first. And then he kind of dreamed all this into existence. But he dreamed this beautiful green world full of plants and animals and the water and the sunshine and the rain and everything. And then he established all this, and then he put us here, Adam and Eve. And then he said, enjoy this garden, take care of it, give birth to children, and steward this world. And so the kin's domain is a micro level replication of those exact actions. You're taking a piece of the earth, you're designing it in the most beautiful way that you possibly can, full of harmony and love and joy and function and all these things. Then you say, I'm going to birth my children here, raise my children here, just like God gave birth to us to live in the garden. And now you've become man, you fulfilled God's purpose for us, right? We're recreating those exact same things. So we become like God, right?
Yeah.
Well, mankind is intended and is in fact the event horizon. We are the intermediary way station between heaven and earth. It's our job to be that conduit to channel heaven on earth. And we talk about the realm, and like Mike said, there's a lot of debate about the shape, and I'm always saying, well, who cares? And of course you get attacked for that pretty vehemently these days. But what I care about more is what I care about is how it works. It's a functional technology. And when you understand all my other work and everything else I've done my entire life, when you know how something works, then you're home free. Then you can do whatever you need to do. And a lot of secrets as far as what people debate about are actually revealed. So we live in a functional realm. And when we are more involved with how things function, then, nothing else really matters. And just like Victor, you mentioned implosion, Victor Schauberger, just by watching trout in the stream, figured out the whole implosion, technology, and then introduced it to vehicles that now can defy gravity as we think of it. They literally levitate. So all the technology is there. And of course, it doesn't mean that we have to steal resources from nature in order to propel things and use things up in a one-way kind of universe. It's all there, and technology is great, of course, if it mimics nature and if we understand how things function in the first place.
Right. And I'm glad you said that, Bear, because you reminded me of something I wanted to say earlier. She says that none of our technology is more perfect than what already exists in nature. She says it's just a poor imitation of what already exists in nature. And she talks about, like the technocratic system. And she says that we have to, oh man, I'm kind of losing my train of thought here, but basically that, to understand nature and to understand space is to understand God. So you're talking about how everything works, right? And so we can have that experience, and all that can be unfolded to us by our direct, conscious, loving interaction with nature. God isn't hiding any secrets from any of us. It's not some you get the secrets and you don't thing. It's who's there to listen, right? It's who is actually right.
There's nothing new under the sun. We can't possibly bring forth anything in the outer world unless it already exists.
Yes, and the application of the consciousness to the physical realm is also bridged in these books when she talks about everything from before planting seeds, put them in your mouth first, because the seed will pick up the information in your DNA, and then when it fruits, it will complement you, because everything in nature wants to complement us. And so we're supposed to engage with nature. This is our divinity. And the examples just go on from there, like the living fence it never needs to be replaced like your traditional, what we consider a traditional wire fence. You know, everything has a purpose, and our job as stewards of this earth is to figure out those purposes and then to use our own creativity and divinity to create this space of love. You know, another example is when you wake up in the morning, you walk your kin's domain barefoot, because the toxicity that has come out of the soles of your feet while you sleep will go into the soil, and then the land knows what else, you know, it needs to complement you. And this whole interaction of the biological and the conscious or spiritual is what we are in, you know, and what many people consider the battery that we live in.
So Wes, if you don't mind, can we back up a little bit, and can you tell us a little bit how you and Gabriel hooked up and how you got involved in all this?
Yeah. So, I mean, I kind of.
You want me to tell the story?
No, I can.
Okay.
I can try to bring sort of my history. You know, I was born in a log cabin in West Virginia and lived on a farm, you know, pretty much off the grid for the first 10 years of my life, and then moved to Brooklyn, New York. So I kind of saw this whole artificial world versus natural world very early on. So when I read the books, it was very resonating. And like I said, the books tell you when you're in nature, it'll wake up to you. And I was reading the books, and this bear literally comes out of the woods, and I was like, whoa, these books are, you know, they read like a Disney movie, but there's something to them. You know, they're purported to be real, so maybe they really are real. And I ended up contacting the author and inviting him to the United Nations to speak at a conference that I helped put on with my brother and his nonprofit Nexus Global. And really, I just wanted to meet the author to figure out how authentic he was. And he was so genuine and so authentic. And then when I, you know, helped put together that event, I met Gabriel, because as soon as you read these books, you want to meet other people who've read them. And then Gabriel and I started working together, and we did another event the next year when we had Vladimir in New York again.
2016.
Yeah. And then, you know, I mean, and then Gabriel and I've kind of been spreading the word on the festival circuit. And Gabe's been kind of doing it online, and we're, you know, best friends, and we just do this to, you know, try to move humanity forward. It's just a life of purpose. I've had my experience in nature, and I'm living in an urban environment now, but I can still find the nature here. You know, I do urban foraging, and I go to the beach a lot, and nature is everywhere, you know, and, you know, the birds are everywhere. So I still, you know, find
birds aren't real, man. Birds aren't real.
It's interesting that that's what goes to the top of, you know, mainstream media. It's just absurd. But yeah, Bear, thanks for asking. That's kind of and I can expand in any direction, but yeah.
Wes lives in Venice Beach, California, right?
Currently, yes.
Where Alpha Vedic family just recently moved away from. You're in the heart of the belly of the beast in many ways, but Venice also was like this homeland of beauty and art and counterculture, and, you know, was very punk rock for a long time, and now it's kind of become a homeless bastion of like liberal ideology. But you're doing really cool stuff there. You're holding the light in that area. We were able to hang out at the Health, Freedom for Humanity event a couple months ago, and that's how I met Wes in person. And Wes is embodying the Anastasia aesthetic and dream in LA. So props to you, homie.
Yeah, I mean, you know, do a lot with sprouting.
Yeah, and you know, I was just going to say, Los Angeles is named the City of Angels for a reason. It is a place of great light. Unfortunately, it attracted a lot of moss in the interim, but it will return to greatness someday.
Yeah, no, I agree. And that's what the books tell us is, you know, don't just go move into nature. You got to clean up the urban environment you're in. So, you know, a lot of people are doing urban homesteading here with, you know, not just plants, but also chickens or quail or rabbit or guinea pigs even. You know, there's nature finds a way. That's the thing. We are the flowers growing through the cracks of the concrete. The artificial programming is the concrete, and the natural programming is always going to take over, but unless you get constant maintenance of the artificial. And this is what she teaches in these books, and it just resonates so deeply when you look at the people who are living properly in the world, who don't even know about these books. They're just intuiting life as opposed to following the artificial programming, which Anastasia calls them robo sapiens. The people who just, you know, blindly follow the
biological robots.
Yeah, you know, the media, you know, in science, the media is the auger that grows the petri dish culture. And so we have this messed up media grows this messed up culture, but it's all completely artificial. And when you get back to the natural, you know, it is an intuitive thing. We can divine this information. And there's plenty of people living this lifestyle now without even knowing about the books, and prior without even knowing about the books. It's just where we resonate in this realm, you know. And it's what makes us healthy, you know. Like they do experiments. People out in their garden have stronger heart rates and, you know, all the biological symptoms of someone healthy. And, you know, you go into a sheetrock box and all those things will drop off. So it's self-evident to me. But
my wife and myself, you know, we author some articles together, and we did one a few years back about that very thing, where we looked up all the research as far as people that do work out, you know, growing things and gardening, you know, just all the health attributes. And years ago, when I read the Anastasia books for the first time ever since we put all of our seeds in our mouth. So it's common sight around here, you know, when we're planting things either outside or in the greenhouse, we always look like chipmunks with a whole mouthful of seeds, you know, before we put them in the ground.
Maybe Wes or Gabriel, could you go step by step on Anastasia's methodology for planting seeds? Because it is very, very cool.
Absolutely. So Anastasia says that you can grow plants in a certain way that can cure any disease imaginable without exception. And so she gives you a process on how to do this. And she says that plants grown in this way are more perfect than any medicine that could be manufactured, because what grows, these plants are grown specifically for you and your conditions. And so what she says is you take the seeds of whatever you're trying to grow, you put them under your tongue, and you let them sit in your saliva for 9 minutes. And during that time, the seed becomes impregnated with all this information on all these different levels about you and your current condition. And then she says, you take the seeds out, you blow like warm air from your mouth on them, so like a breath, and you hold them out to the sky. You should be standing barefoot in the spot where you're planning on planting the seeds, and you hold them out to the sky to get information and light from the stars, and then you plant them. And then you put a little bit of your saliva in the hole, ideally. And what those plants do is they are now informed of all these different conditions of your body, and they go down and they get the nutrients and other things from the soil that you specifically need. And eating, she says, just a few of those plants in your garden. You don't need to even have your whole garden planted like that. She says just a few will be enough if you eat them consistently to cure any disease. She says just without exception. And so it's very powerful. And I was going to ask you, Bear, because I know you're planting a bunch like that. Like, have you noticed the difference between like normal plants and plants when you plant them that way?
Oh, absolutely. And we've done it for a long time, unmistakable. And the process that you just described from Anastasia is exactly what we do in an alchemy lab. You deliberately and consciously interact whatever you're trying to do with all 4 levels of ether. And, you know, you just described the whole continuum of ether and doing a conscious interaction with each one of them. So, you know, you're taking from consciousness, stepping it down, and, you know, creating, you know, you're really duplicating the creative process, which is what we're assigned to do here in the first place. But yeah, the food, it's not just that you're growing it on your own, but when you bring in those understandings that you just described, it brings it up to another whole level, just like making something in the lab, when you're interacting with it in the same way. And it also becomes, a very spiritual practice, because in that process, you're not just getting good food to heal your body, but you're creating a resonance on all those same levels of your being, so that now you're operating on a full sensory apparatus, just instead of just being the typical onlooker, that we've become in this life.
Yeah, there's an interesting scene in the books where Anastasia, sorry, am I saying it right? Everyone's like arguing.
Anastasia is the way to
Anastasia.
say it, like Russian. The Americanized pronunciation is Anastasia. Tomato, tomato.
Yeshua, Jesus, yeah. So there's a scene in it with Vladimir where she has him lying down and all these bugs start getting on him and he freaks out and he actually like does something really terrible to her because he's freaking out. And she's like, what? And he was like, what are you going to have? The bugs kill me? They're going to eat me to death. And she's like, no, stupid. They were coming and they were healing you. They were taking off the bits of toxicity off you. And I bring this up.
Pores.
Yeah, they were cleaning out his pores.
She says your body couldn't breathe and your whole body was stuck up. So they're cleaning out your pores.
And I bring this up because it's also our relationship to the animal world that is so crucial, right? That we live on this garden planet with all of the microbes, right? The microorganisms that we are literally interplaying with our consciousness, with our saliva, with the plants, interacting with them. It's this like amazing, holistic, all connected environment where literally she talks about how the squirrels are feeding her. And she just she's like the ultimate, perfect eater, where she's just like kind of eats when she's hungry, just off the land, all these amazing things because she's the true master. But there's this idea of animals and our connection with animals. I would love to get deeper into that too. But one thing too, Gabriel, sorry to interrupt, we didn't get your story. How did you become where you are now as like starting this foundation and everything?
Yeah, thank you for asking. The long and short of it is that I found the books, as a young man. I'm young, I'm only 27. And about 10 years ago, I think is when I read the books, 2014, so 8 years ago. And, I was like 19 or something. And I had spent my life searching for truth. I had read the books of the various religions, the apocryphal books, everything. I found a lot of things that made sense to me, but I didn't feel like I had a full picture of life that made me feel like I had a life that was worth living. You know what I mean? Like a picture of the world that inspired me to get up every day and continue going through this crazy system that we live in. And after some very deep soul searching, I was led to the books. A spiritual teacher I was following at the time, who I believe is a charlatan now, but he did some good stuff. He mentioned the books, and he said the Siberian master Anastasia. And those words just stuck with me. And I said, Siberian master Anastasia. So I go look it up, and eventually I find the books and buy them and devour them, 8 of them in 2 weeks. And basically, halfway through book 1, I just felt like I understood what she was saying so deeply, and that I connected so deeply with her and her message that I just said, for the rest of my life, this is what I'm doing. I found what I want to do, and I am going to dedicate my life to sharing this everywhere and building this movement and connecting these people. And, so it started as a very small thing. It started as I was trying to find other people who knew about the books, and it was basically impossible. At that time in 2014, if you looked up Ringing Cedars, there was no community online. There was some forums, they were shut down. And so I started a free forum. It started really basic. That's how I met Wes, was on this forum. Wes, somebody who signed up on the forum, connected us. And there's a few people out there who might remember that. So shout out to you if you're here. But that eventually turned into a bit of a website. We did some of our first gatherings and started to turn it into an organization. We started doing meetups and things, and I was doing at least 2 per year for a while, and that turned into an online community, which is huge now. And I really want to get into like what our work is, because I want to show people what we're doing to bring this Kin's Domain and Ringing Cedars movement to not just the United States, but international now. We're starting to go pretty international, countries outside of Russia. But yeah, it's just evolved into this giant community of Ringing Cedars readers, and there's a lot happening. So I just trying to find greater ways to serve, greater ways to connect. That's really what it is. Anastasia tells Vladimir in book 3 to do everything he can to connect the readers. And I didn't see an efficient way of that happening at the time. So I created the ways. And now lots is happening because of it, you know? And so I see myself much more as a facilitator and connector rather than I'm not, all those people are out there creating their kin's domains in their lives. I'm just helping connect them.
It's an amazing service, though, because those of us that really resonated with the original books, it's there's so much there, and just for you not only to keep it alive, but actually bring it into a living embodiment. And I think there's a lot of us all working towards the same aim. So yeah, congratulations to both of you guys. So we keep talking about ringing cedars, and can we get into a little bit about the cedar trees themselves and what we mean by that?
Yeah. So in book 1, in the first few pages of book 1, Anastasia's grandfather start talking about the cedar and its divine purpose and what it does. But the ringing cedars specifically are Siberian cedar trees growing way deep in the taiga that are unbelievably rare. They are cedars that have grown to be like 550 years old. And at that time, they start ringing. They have accumulated so much energy. She says the cedar accumulates the energy of the sun, the moon, and the stars and stores it. And its divine purpose is to give it back to man when mankind is running low on that energy. And so basically the cedar starts to ring, and it sounds like an electrical power line or something. And so that's where the title Ringing Cedars comes from, because her grandfathers had found a ringing cedar and they wanted Vladimir to come in and cut it down and distribute the pieces so that way people would benefit from it. And so, actually, Vladimir says that if you have a piece of Siberian cedar, like Wesley's showing us now, that's a Siberian cedar branch.
Yeah, right here, everybody.
It actually holds the bright energy that comes off of a person and reflects it back at them. And her grandfather says that just one piece of cedar like that has more beneficial energy for man than all of the man-made power institutions in the whole world. And so I'm kind of crazy. I have 3 of them. I have 3 of them.
Wow, I need one.
But I plan on giving some to my kids. And that's why.
And don't they say you rub them and they become almost like a stone over time, right?
Yeah, they change color. So like this one, it's kind of hard to see, but it's kind of a lighter color. I haven't rubbed it at all. But this one right here, I never show these to people, guys. So it's darker. And if you look on the back, it's very dark. And it changes color and absorbs your oils and things. Changes color, becomes very beautiful.
So is there a reputable place where the rest of us can get those? I've looked online before and then had, just questions as far as whether they were authentic or not.
Yeah, so these aren't ringing cedars, by the way. The ones that I have are from a 400-year-old tree, which is pretty dang old anyway. You can get them, the official website of the author is Megre, MEGRELLC.com. That's where you can get Siberian cedar oil. You could get your pendants. Some of the pendants I have come from ringingcedarsofrussia.org. They are not official, but they do source real Siberian cedar, and it's the 400-year-old cedar that I'm wearing.
So
Okay.
the ringing aspect, she gets into this in a very interesting way where it's connected to the universe and all this stuff. Do you want to touch a little bit on that and kind of the science behind it? And then also interesting story, how her folks died, right? With this power that comes from this tree. It's pretty wild.
Right. So Anastasia talks about the Siberian cedar being an accumulator of all this cosmic energy. And its purpose is to share it back with man when man needs it. And so basically how Anastasia was raised by her grandfathers, her parents passed away when she was a young baby. And what happened is there was a ringing cedar, and basically they were trying to interact with the cedar, her mother and father. And I may not be remembering the story 100% accurately, but what happened was her father climbed to the top of the tree, and he like broke off one of the branches, and he stuck his head. A beam of light started shooting out. The energy from the cedar became loosened and began emanating out of the top of the cedar, and so much light and information and energy was coming out that when he put his head into it, she said for a brief moment he had incredible, like, omnipotent, omniscient understanding of the universe in an unbelievable way, but then his body like vaporized after. He like died instantly because of how much energy was coming out. So yeah, it's a pretty interesting thing. And so the cedars that we wear, Vladimir said, can become like the ringing cedars over time. After wearing them, they accumulate the bright energy from a human and can reflect it back. So I would say anybody out there should probably just go get a little Siberian cedar pendant, because it's just going to help you. You feel better.
And do you think there's the opportunity to grow these type of cedars? Has anybody tried to grow these on the stateside?
Yeah, so we have a lot of people trying to grow Siberian cedars right now. They're pretty hard to germinate in general because of their requirements for like cold stratification and things like that. But if you get them going, you can. And Anastasia talks about, there's a scene in the books where she talks about a city where people grow cedars in their apartment, and they do the thing where they plant it under their tongue, and then they plant it in a little pot. And she tells these people like to think of this plant very tenderly, to tell your secrets to it, to like mentally give it love and energy and things like that, and go and plant those in the street, right, on little plots in the street. And the whole city becomes full of these very special cedars, she says, which are pretty much like the ringing cedars. And she says this city will become a living temple of the universe, unlike any city that has ever been established. And she says the people of that city will be wise and calm and all those things. And so yeah, you can grow a tree that basically becomes like a ringing cedars. And the cheat code is that it becomes like that, not from just accumulating the cosmic energy, but accumulating your energy, because you are like the light of the sun too, and the planets and the stars and things. You give life to everything. Did that answer your question?
Yeah.
I don't
And
want to feel like I'm going on a tangent.
No, that's just amazing. And the other thing about the cedar trees we could touch on briefly, which Vladimir was his first kind of introduction to what brought him back, because he had health issues, was the oils, right? The oils, and then also the nuts, or we call pine nuts, I guess, right? And have you had any experience with those oils and the nuts? And are there good sources? Maybe explain a little bit what that's all about, and are there sources where we can find that stuff?
Yeah, so the best source for the oil is MegreLLC.com. That's the family of the author, Vladimir Megre. They make the oil in like the highest standards in the world. It's amazing. They produce it all inside of a building made of Siberian cedar. There's no metal. The oil doesn't ever touch any metal.
Wow.
So it's very high quality. Yeah, I've had a lot of experiences with it. I used to distribute it for a little bit, so I will probably become a distributor for the oil again in the near future. So you guys just like stay tuned for that. But Anastasia says it's the strongest healing, natural healing medicine in the world. I know that's a bold statement, and a lot of people have said that, but coming from her, I believe it. And yeah, Siberian cedar oil has the entire periodic table inside of it. Everything is present in Siberian cedar oil, and all of these energies and everything. The nutritional properties of it are pretty unmatched, and it's incredibly healing, even in small doses. So I won't say too much about it, but yeah, it's a really, if you're having any kind of health problems, they call it the oil of 100 cures or something, because it really just does cure anything.
The MegreLLC.com I found right now. We could put that in the show notes if that is a legit spot to get it.
That's where you get it. It's the best spot to get it.
And
So-
I'm shopping online as we speak here on my other computer screen.
There we go, Bear. Yeah. Get some oil.
So what do the nuts look like? Are those like a pine nut, like what we could call pine nuts here, the little white pine nuts, or what do those look like?
So I'm moving my camera around. It's because I have a Siberian cedar pine cone right here.
Nice.
And if I were to break this open, Wesley, on your necklace, you have what the seeds look like. Can you show them? Those are the seeds.
Can you guys see this here?
Oh,
Those
wow.
are the seeds inside of this cone right here. So this is a real Siberian cedar. That's what the seeds look like. And then inside of that is just a soft little white nut. It's very soft, very tender, delicious. When I went to
Makes a
Russia,
great nut milk.
the best nut milk ever.
In the books, her great grandfather we don't know how old he is. The idea is the longevity that comes out of this. Obviously, the lifestyle and what he's tapped into, but just from eating this stuff has a longevity aspect to it on the health side. I mean, that guy is he still around? And he's 120?
Her great grandfather, by the time he passed away, he was 120.
So he did pass away. Okay.
Yep, he did pass away. Yeah, I kind of spoiled the books. But he passes away. Book 6.
There's going to be some spoilers in this one.
Yeah, there's a lot of spoilers. Yeah, there's a lot of spoilers.
Yeah, I think the whole story itself of the books is really part of the whole Anastasia story, because she predicts this whole thing, you know, the whole fact that he even writes a book. Like he wasn't going to write a book, but he does write the book, and, you know, he tries to get it published. No one wants to publish it. And he just starts giving it away for free in the town square in Moscow. And it's, you know, cut to 10 years later or so, it gets translated into English. And it's up to, like, I don't know, 5 or 6 books long, because he keeps going back and getting more information from her. And then cut to today, it's now 10 books, you know, been translated into, you know, over 20 languages. And it's never had a publisher. It's all word of mouth. And, you know, real live communities are growing around the teachings of these books, which really are an algorithm of all of the great teachings of all the great books. You know, with the emphasis on natural programming versus artificial programming. So I think the whole story of the books themselves lends so much credibility to the story. Because, you know, if you just Google this, it's going to say, oh, that's a cult, it's fake. And there's nothing
They call it a Slavic neo-pagan religion on Wikipedia.
Right.
Which is just wild.
That's great.
Considering that she is probably more quote unquote Christian than many Christians, the way she talks about God and Christ and all that, you know,
she refers to God as the Father. She references Jesus in his life many times. She quotes scripture.
Yeah. The other thing too is Vladimir's life, right? So he's an interesting character in himself, because he, to be honest, kind of annoys me sometimes. He's such a normie in some of his, perspective and stuff, and and the way he talks. He's very materialist. What are you talking about, Anastasia? It's all, I have money. That's what the goal of this life is, right? I have cars. I have all this stuff. And I think he kind of plays that up, obviously, in the books as a counter to her. But
yeah, it's a classic Carlos Castaneda, Don Juan relationship.
Yeah, exactly. But so maybe, spoiler alert, now he has had 2 kids with her. Maybe we could touch on this and how this stuff is also another proof of what's going on, that he has a son and a daughter with her. People have met them. The son's working on a kin domain. You know, that she does exist. People have gone to try to find her now for years in the taiga. And I don't know if you guys have seen this video on YouTube. Have you guys seen this? Because I went digging. There's this really strange
levitating.
Is it
the levitating daughter one.
Yeah, I know. That's been out for a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think that was Anastasia's daughter. She's very careful, but I'm sure her daughter could levitate. No biggie. But so you want to talk about like Anastasia's children and kind of what?
First, before that, the author Vladimir, because he's the person that we have a direct connection to this material, that has said over and over in interviews, yes, of course she's real. I have kids with her. Where she is now, people have been trying to find her. Please don't try to go and find her.
Don't do that.
They're now saying that there's hunters that will shoot people out there in the taiga. So it's very dangerous. So, but that being said, have you guys have met Vladimir? I know Wesley says he has. Is he, in your mind, an authentic individual? And how has his life been so massively changed from this experience?
We've both met him a couple of times, and he's tremendous. I mean, he's his background is like a hard-nosed Russian businessman from Soviet Russia, right? Like perestroika, entrepreneur, kind of lawless kind of land. It was a wild time that he kind of came up in. And he goes and he meets Anastasia and does a complete 180. I mean, the most dramatic 180 of all time, maybe. And so, but who he is now, he's an incredible person. The light he gives off is amazing. Wesley, what you want to tell your experience with him?
I would say that what speaks volumes about Vladimir is his granddaughter, Nina, who, when I met her, she was in her early 20s. She spoke a little bit of English, and she basically handled his affairs in New York because he doesn't speak any English. And she was so well put together for such a young woman. And, if you compare that to your average American woman at that age, who's, probably suffers from the Kardashification of our culture, the young Russian woman just spoke volumes about the authenticity of this man and his moral standing and his family values, and his consideration of how to tell these stories that, he, in my opinion, definitely lived. And what I mean by that, because when you do read these books, it's like, they do read like a Disney movie. Squirrels come and open up nuts for her. She sleeps with a bear. She talks about, telekinesis and transporting her body and all these things. And I think that what we have to understand is that these things are all capable in realms that we don't necessarily consider in our waking life. And what the advantages of reading books like this is, it makes the synchronicities in your life stand out. I mean, a lot of the reason Gabe and I know each other is from the synchronicities. And when you begin to look at life through this other lens, all these other things really fall into place and make complete sense. And what it really allows you to see is how BS the whole system is, and how it really is just everything is completely inverted, and you're completely removed from yourself, and you symbolically, the sole of your foot is stamped on the birth certificate, and then that's monetized, and you're a debt slave. And it's just painfully honest when you begin to be able to see it from her perspective.
And our sensory organs have been just really streamlined through programming to just use one half of the polarity. You mentioned sight. All of our senses have two polarities. Just with the eyes, we have the inner sight is our imagination, which is every bit as real as the part that receives impulses externally, and then, allows us to analyze the mathematical order of externalization. But when we learn how to couple that and actively use the projection of our imagination out, then all of a sudden an entire different reality is exposed to us. And these people like Anastasia, I had a person in my life that kind of bent my noodle early on, with some experiences. And that was what the whole experience was about, is just learning how to, use both sides of your faculties. And then all of a sudden you're seeing things differently. You're hearing things differently. Our ears, the same thing. People don't realize our ears, the two polarities. One part is the little ossicles inside that actually look like miniature leg bones. They receive the kinetic energy from outside, which makes us want to ambulate our lower extremities and actually dance. That's why dancing is a normal thing. And then at the same time, the other part of the hearing is actually our larynx. And so when we learn how to just couple all five senses and learn both sides, the truth and everything that Anastasia is talking about is right in front of us all the time. We've just never learned to put the two together, and we've been programmed that that doesn't even exist in the first place. You know, the what's it called, the the disinformation folks, you know, that say Anastasia is, you know, make believe and everything. You know, they're out there just every turn discouraging us from tuning in and seeing the truth for ourselves.
Right. And Anastasia says that, she says herself, I exist for those for whom I exist. Right. And so, you know, one time the editor of the books, he was asked, you know, is Anastasia real? And he answered, do you know anyone who could make up that information inside of those books? Do you know any human who understands things in that way and who could fabricate that? And he said, yeah, me either. So, you know, you can leave it at that. And she also talks about all those abilities she has, right? Like all the ways that she's using her God-given abilities. And we've talked a lot about it, like her genetic memory and her kind of omniscience and all these things. She says, you know, I am just man. She says throughout the books that I am not above you. She gets upset at Vladimir whenever he kind of deifies her. And he says, listen, I'm just a woman of the human species. And everyone has these abilities if only they were able to tune into them. Right. And she says that she wants to restore people's abilities, you know? So through living this kind of life, we start to wake up to those higher aspects of ourselves, right? Like it's all there.
Yeah, I will say this on those who are wondering about proofs, you know, in the end, the proof is in the pudding, right? What we get out of it. But that being said, Vladimir, he went from stuff that she told him about ancient sites and things. He went and discovered them was it Eastern Europe or in the Slavic areas of ancient relic places that she talks about. And he went and for like a year and went and looking for this and found these places. So there's a lot of proofs because Vladimir, he said he won't put anything out in the books that he can't go and verify through quote unquote science or other texts. He was very Western scientist viewpoint on that aspect. So there are a lot of proofs in the book. And if you read the notes and things where showing that this is a real person that he's getting this information from.
Speaking of that, I'm sorry. She predicts the future on a lot of things, you know? And so if you look in the footnotes of the books, there's things that were written in these books in the late 90s that are coming true now. Like I was talking about this law on kins domains. Like she talked about this in 1997, 96, and right now the Russian Duma is voting on this to pass this law and give out 2.5 acres to everyone in Russia. Just saying, you know, I don't know how a random Russian entrepreneur could have came up with that. But, you know, it's like if people don't want to believe, then it is what it is. But like you say, the proof is in the pudding. And the proof is happy families all over Russia and across Europe and the United States and things that are happening. You know, they're planting trees. They are regenerating this world. They're giving birth to happy, healthy children. They're giving, you know, they're teaching their children and giving them a consciousness of love and of God. And you know what? If that's what comes from the books, then what are you going to say? You know what I mean?
So how is this taking hold in North America?
That's something we're very able to answer. And so what has happened is that in Russia, I mentioned there's like 500 settlements ish right now. And then if you look at the other, and those are just the ones they know about. And then if you look at the surrounding countries, there's a whole bunch like Ukraine, Belarus, all over that part of the world, even in parts of Europe. The German Ringing Cedars movement is actually huge. It's actually so big that the German government has started saying that the books are like racist and for Nazis, and they're trying to ban them in the country. Yeah, they're trying to ban them in Germany. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So the German Ringing Cedars community is huge. But in North America, a few settlements have come and gone. Tens of thousands, potentially maybe the low hundreds of thousands of people have read the books in the United States for sure, like Canada and England, Western areas. But some settlements have started to crop up, but there's nothing really permanent. So we don't have, a large scale settlement like they do in Russia, where it's even more than 10 or 15 families. We don't even have that yet. But I think
just real quick, Gabriel, about how many people in Russia how many kin domains do you think there are, and how big how big are these books in Russia?
They're massive. I mean, in Russia, it's a huge thing. In Russia, there's, so I keep saying settlement. So a settlement is, a whole group of kins domains. The biggest ones are like 400 families, maybe more. The smallest ones, 10 families, something like that. And then there's all these people creating their domains individually too. And those will become settlements eventually and things. And so it's thousands and thousands and thousands of people. And then there's also just the readers in the country who want to create domains, but they can't, but they're kind of dreaming of this. And so something like that law being passed where they all get 2.5 acres of land is a boon for them, and will probably lead to a huge increase in the amount of settlements there. But in
so
North America,
go ahead.
Sorry. No, you go ahead.
Well, no, finish with North America, and then I just had a question.
Sure. So in North America, we're kind of in this state where there's a lot of individual kins domains all over the place. But the problem is there's a lack of communication among the readership, because when the movement started in Russia, they had a nonprofit called the Anastasia Foundation, but in Russia was facilitating connection among all the readers clubs, events, information, news, and all these things, some level of organization and ability for people to communicate. And then all these other little organizations cropped up, but we never had that for like the last 15, 17 years that the books have been published in English. There was no real easy way where you could find other readers unless you either knew people in real life or you found them in some random little Facebook group. And so what we're doing is we're solving the problem of not being able to find other readers. We're also, I actually have some notes about all the different things we're doing that I'd love to share, just so people can see all the ways that we're doing this. I don't know if now is the appropriate time, maybe later, but yeah. Sure. So in North America, there isn't really any settlements. There's a bunch of domains everywhere. People are starting to get together and buy land and start to create settlements. So like even Wesley just sold his land to a group that's trying to create a settlement up in British Columbia. And so, yeah, there's a lot that's starting to emerge, but it hasn't really developed like it has in Russia, like not even close.
Yeah, and there's Bruce in Arizona. There are several people with the intention to start them and are along the way of starting them. On the individual level, one of the keys is owning the title, the underlying allodial title in perpetuity without paying any taxes on it. That's the model, or paying any taxes on anything it produces, like food or whatever. And so making that the model in the West is tough.
More difficult.
What we're trying to do with what I'm doing with my land sale is putting it in a trust. And then with a nonprofit trust, that holds the title, and then the people can be beneficiaries and pass it down. But these are all things that we're still obviously working out, but we're trying to do things outside the quote unquote debt system.
Just so you know, Bear, Gabriel and Wes, they know Ron Gibson and have worked with them. So I just wanted you to know that, because I know we're about to go deep into this and we know this stuff too. And I think this is where
I just got triggered, right?
Well, so I know this is where this is where the magic is going to happen, because I think Alpha Vedic and this. Anyways, go ahead, Bear. I think we can really put our heads together.
Can I say one thing?
Just a couple. Go ahead.
So you mentioned Ron Gibson. We're doing an event with Ron Gibson about getting land patents for your domains and for settlements. So anybody who's already familiar with land patents and all that, we're getting into that, and we're going to put that out to the whole Ringing Cedars community.
Yeah, and as you guys know, we did a 3-part series on that.
That's how I found you guys.
Started off, and then had Ron over. So just a little teaser for this event that we are talking about, nobody knows about. That's going to be here, a workshop on the land. We're going to start with a 3-part process where you have a trust sort of situation, a land trust. Then you secondarily get rid of your deeds, which would be akin to a allodial title, right? Land patent. But now we go the next level because we're working with Marcia Ann, and she is really adept at helping us understand that we're all operating under the War Powers Act. Now, when we revert to our original titles without the deeds, that's good. It gets rid of a lot of, it puts a lot of speed bumps in the way of the predators out there. On the other hand, now we have a title that's still based on conquest and the War Powers Act. So now we want to go the next step of having a title that is free and clear of the War Powers Act at the same time. And we believe that's very important, because if we're going to do anything like what the whole, process that you guys are talking about, we just don't want to be tainted with any level of, maritime conquest and that sort of thing in the first place. Sure. So my next question was, we're obviously doing our thing here, and we really do feel more of an alignment with the direction you're going. And we talk about permaculture a lot, which is okay. It's, again, baby steps into maybe what you're about, but it's become very clinical and academic. I did a permaculture certification at Oregon State a few years ago, just for the hell of it. And I was very disappointed, really.
I was going to do that one.
I learned
Yeah.
So, okay, you got a piece of paper and it still doesn't, even touch on some of the things we're talking about here, let alone even teach you how to do things intelligently and know how to adapt to your own piece of land. They do kind of, but not really. So I guess my question is how do people like ourselves, maybe integrate more fully with your project and just bring this other dimension into it so that we can get past this adolescent stage of permaculture, which is where I feel like where we're at.
Mm-hmm. So are you saying like moving to an understanding that's beyond kind of this design science of permaculture?
Exactly. Yeah. And it's what we're already doing and living here on the land. My wife and myself, we started, the last couple of farms, and this one we're on here. That's where we come from in our own consciousness. But when we're interacting with people outside, we use a lot of the permaculture, biodynamics terminology, which has some value. But I think we need to sort of catapult out a little bit quicker now because of to keep pace with what's going on in the world stage, we'll say, because we're gonna thrive through this thing only when the consciousness shifts. And I don't think just doing a permaculture design is going to get us all the way home.
Right. That's so. I'll give my best answer, and you tell me if that satisfies your curiosity. So how I understand it is that, permaculture is a valuable tool, but it is simply a tool. It's not what Anastasia gives in the Ringing Cedars books is an entire perspective about man and God, and it's a consciousness shift, right? And she talks about consciously interacting with nature with love, right? You're not even just going and getting a piece of land and saying like, this is my garden, but my house is somewhere else, and I just like visit my garden or something. It's my home is here. I'm settling my family here. I'm taking the love that I feel in my heart and embodying it here. And so your interaction with that piece of land is already completely different than, what's happening in the usual situation, right? Because it's the intention and the consciousness behind it is different. And so she says that a single creator inspired by love is greater than all the scientific institutions combined, which are devoid of love, right? And so she says all that information is within us, but when we're tapped into that, it can kind of unfold. So that was my first thought about your question. Does that go in the right direction?
Exactly. And it's exactly what I would say as well, but I just wanted to open it up for discussion here.
Yeah, what I would add to that is the self-expression aspect of it. And that, like I said earlier, it's a canvas for you to present yourself. Like, you know, we're artists, and every impression that we do during this lifetime leaves a mark. And your garden, your kin's domain, your space of love is your self-expression. And through that expression, that it's like it's a therapy. It's you begin to resonate at your true self, and you know, whether that your design is created and you wrote it down first, or you took it from someone else, or you intuited it, whatever you created, that physical biological pattern will bring in the kymatics that allow you to resonate at your highest, healthiest, most perfect self.
Yeah,
it's literally, I was just say it's literally an alchemist lab. You know, it's a two-way process. When I was going through my certification, I had this person that the teacher that oversaw my project and was my director, we'll say. And she was constantly interjecting on how I needed to do things. Meanwhile, I was on a real piece of land and I was always at odds, just saying the land won't let me do that there. It doesn't work. I know, you've got your academic approach, but you have to be here. You have to have a communication with the land. And, when you live like this, there's really no demarcation between the inside of your house, the outside of your house, yourself, the plants. It's a constant resonance back and forth. And, as I look out my window here, those are our children and we love each other. And there's that constant communication line open. And there's always telling us what the next step is for us to do here on the land. It's not us just getting in our mentals and figuring out something on paper.
Right. And where I would add to that is she mentions in the book that when you first go into nature challenges you because it's not used to you. It doesn't know what you're there for. And it's not until you really set your intention and you spend a good period of time in nature that she opens up to you. And I can tell you from firsthand experience, this piece of land that I bought up in British Columbia, the first 3 or 4 months, I literally was living there without a structure or anything except a tent. Every single bramble or stick I stepped on would go right into my foot in the deepest, most painful place. But then by the end of the summer, 3, 4, 5 months into it, I was running through the same brambles and they would just move out of the way, or just, I would feel them, but they would not leave a mark. And I just saw that nature was just moving right out of my way. And it happened that way. It's literally legitimately how it happened.
I was just going to say, Bear, that is so profound. And this is the thinking that we need to start seeing the world as, that it's a two-way street, because I go barefoot pretty much whenever I'm gardening or outside. And my dad is, for one person, like, you shouldn't be doing it. You're going to step, you're going to hurt yourself. And I was saying, well, in nature, there's really nothing super designed to hurt you, like in that way on your feet, right? Besides like a bramble or a sharp stick. It's the man-made stuff. If you get, the nails and the cut glass and all that stuff that can hurt you. And so it is interesting where when I'm really in the flow, like towards the end of the summer, and my feet have been calloused heavily by that time, I never get hurt. And I love that description, Wes, that it's nature feeding back from you and moving out of the way. And we got to start thinking in these terms more.
Yeah,
it's so true. True. I don't, the poison oak even leaves me alone on my own land. That I work right in it. I'm waiting in it, and I used to get it pretty severely, but just leaves me alone.
So Bear, you mentioned that when you're living this way, that everything is kind of feeding back to you, and you're saying that the house is not necessarily the home. It's the entire home is the land, right? And everything growing on the land. And Anastasia says that, she says that exact thing. She says she doesn't refer to a home as a structure, as a house. She says the entire 2.5 acre kin's domain is the home, right? And she says that she says it's a living entity and it continues to grow in perpetuity. And she says, this is how the creator himself thought up the whole balance of things. Everything around you is charged with the task of cherishing and delighting you and your children, and cherishing and feeding them, right? And it's like when we have that direct communication, everything starts to respond back to us, you know, and actually fulfill its purpose, because we live in the world, but we're not connected to it. So it's like we talk about having a piece of motherland, right? A piece of the motherland. We all live in the United States, or we all live in Canada, or we all live wherever, but we can't say a piece of that land is ours, right? But we're supposed to take a piece of that land and cultivate it, and, you know, become stewards of it, and settle our family line there and all that. And anyway, you see where I'm going with it.
Yeah, and we could even get into building materials that are more naturally inclined. You know, our whole house, there's a lot of natural building materials here. In fact, our whole interior, Mike will tell you, it's all cedar. And
Nice.
so, you know, it does create that resonance between the inside and outside. You don't have all these synthetics that are creating a barrier in the first place. So that's helpful if you make your dwelling actually part of the outside in that way.
Right. She tells people when they're building their domains too, she says, don't make the house too big or solid, because your descendants will want to make them out of more better materials. She says, but those materials don't exist yet. She says they're going to want to plant, they're going to want to cut down the trees that their grandfather or their grandmother planted, and they hold that resonance of love. And she says that the house that they build out of those materials will cure them and keep them away from all kinds of evils and protect them, you know?
Yeah, I was reading this kind of occulted book about Atlantis that Bear had given me, and one of their great technologies that they used was they were growing this sort of fiber that they figured out how to grow, and it was like more powerful and stronger than anything we have in modern times right now, anything synthetic. And they could only grow it at a certain place, and a lot of their technologies were based on these kind of concepts. Right. And so I foresee a future where we move back into that, and we work more with Mother Nature, and also the way we work with animals. And, you know, one thing that I struggle with sometimes is pests. Like, I see animals as pests, but Anastasia would say, no, that, you know, when you start to work within the realm of nature better, those pests actually start to, you realize they're not pests. They're balancing the imbalance that I've created on the land. So that is interesting, Baird, because I know with where you are, you have bear, you have mountain lion, you have all these creatures that want to come in, knock stuff down. But how do we engage with them in a way where we kind of transmute that mentality of them being something as a pest and more as someone as an ally? These are ways that, you know.
Our first couple years here, the bears were relentless with us. You know, they'd be up on our deck, you know, and looking in the, you know, the sliding glass door, and standing in front of your truck when you need to go, you know, get it and everything. I had a little standoff one day where I got like just within a few feet, and we kind of had a little communication, and then he just walked away. And ever since then, the bear just sort of leave us alone. You know, we'll notice them in a distance, just kind of ambling through the property, but they don't come around here or bother us anymore. And we've got tons of fruit trees and everything that we've you know, planted in other places up here in this kind of off-grid community where we're at. You know, the bears are just terrorizing everything you plant, but we haven't had any problem.
Yeah, Wesley, actually on the cover of the book you have there, The Space of Love, you see the bear and the eagle. And, you know, and we're talking about the relationship with animals, and Mike, I guess you're thinking about like Anastasia's relationship with the animals, and she's got these animals that serve her and listen to her and love her and would protect her and her children to the utmost.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is that, you know, she birthed her son right there in that glade in the taiga, in the presence of all those animals. So the animals witnessed the birth, and they
help raise the children too.
Right. And she was even partially raised by animals because her parents died when she was like 2, so she couldn't breastfeed. So she was taking animal from like the wolf that was there, taking milk from the wolf. And so those animals become like, they witness this birth, and now they just say, we're going to give our lives for this child unconditionally, like forever, you know. And it's not mysticism that the animals are just serving her. her family has been in that place for millennia, and generations of those animals know like her and her family, you know.
Well, and there's this resonance idea. So when Vladimir upsets her on a few occasions, you can feel the whole resonance of the entire glade that she's in start to get quiet and get in tune with her emotions. She is so tapped in as a master that everything around her entire atmosphere, from the little tiny microorganisms to the wolves, they are in resonance with her, and she's a master of them. And it just shows that, man, we are the master of this realm. This God gave us this beautiful garden planet, for the garden realm, whatever you want to call it, so that we can co-create, so we can be his expression of love, right? And that relates to every micro element of this natural world into our consciousness. And it's so cool when she really shows this in many ways. Like the first time Vladimir sleeps in her cave, he wakes up and he's got his head on a bear and freaks out. And you realize that that's her friend that she hangs out with. It's just like Wes says, it sounds like a Disney movie, but there is magic that isn't magic. It's real science. It's really how nature works. And I just love it so much. And Anna Breitenbach, who I've been trying to get on this show, I need to reach out to her again. She has shown with real scientific means in university, she is an animal psychic, and she can speak with animals and know what they're doing and have them do things. This is a real phenomenon. This isn't fantasy. This is one of the superpowers that we all can have.
And to your point, Mike, about the communication with nature and how everything responds to her, there's a part where she demonstrates to Vladimir her connection with the glade and the environment around her. And so she's sitting with him and their backs are on a cedar tree, and she slips her hand over his heart, and she says, I can adjust, my heartbeat to match yours. And she says, watch what happens when I match my heartbeat to yours. Listen to everything around you. And she lowers her heartbeat to match his, and the sounds of everything change. And the birds and the chirping and everything changes, because that environment knows her, is so connected to her that it responds to every little change inside of her. And so he says he felt a feeling of happiness in that moment that he had never understood. He's like, it's all the happinesses of all his lifetime. He said he couldn't conceive of this kind of happiness. And he's like, is this what it's like, to be connected with nature? And then she raises her heartbeat again, and the birds start chirping faster, and everything starts going. And he's like, no, please do it again. Like, I need to feel this happiness. And so that's what happens, though, in our lives with the King's Domain, like eventually, right? It's that piece of land gets to know you so intimately that you will be connected to nature in that way,
So maybe it's one of our final little discussion points here. You talk about meeting your soulmate, in some of your work there. So maybe you can counsel the gentlemen that are listening, the single gentlemen, how they can meet their own forest nymph.
Yeah. It happened to me. I was blessed. And so why does meeting your soulmate even come up, right? So so Anastasia describes that, the purpose of mankind is co-creation and joy for all from its contemplation. And that's the main sentence that kind of sums up the philosophy. And the ultimate fulfillment of that is birth. So how do you give birth to something in joy? Well, you need to find your second half. How do you create a Kin's domain full of love, or whatever? You find your second half. And so how to find your soulmate? Join our communities, come to our events. If you're that's what happened to me. 4 years in running. But it's important because everyone has someone out there that's for them, right? And all of us, we're polarities here in this realm, as we say. All of us here are the male polarity, but we have the female polarity, and we need to unify them, because God is the unity of all these things. And so to fulfill our purpose,
there's actually 37 polarities.
Yeah, well, there we go, right? As they say now, right? So anyway, it's important because you find this person, your other half, and you feel that love, and you take this inspired feeling and you nurture it, and you give a material embodiment to it by creating a kins domain. Actually, there was a quote I wanted to read that's exactly about this, if you guys don't mind. Vladimir says, "Let each one of us take a small plot of his land, 1 hectare, pull his whole mind and whole spirituality together and create a very small but concrete paradise. He will transform his little piece of land on our large planet into a flourishing garden, giving a material embodiment to his spirituality, following God's example. If millions of people do this in a whole lot of countries, then the whole earth will become a flourishing garden." Here's the point. A father and mother who are actually creating a space of love for their children are more spiritual than the most celebrated wise men who only talk about spirituality. Let the spirit of each man spring up from the ground as a beautiful flower, a tree with fragrant fruit, and let this take place on every single hectare of our planet. So we can't have that kind of co-creation if you don't find your soulmate. So finding your soulmate is a big thing in the Ringing Cedars series. And yeah.
I think,
And Gurdjieff, go ahead.
I would say, to add to that, really the underlying force to finding your soulmate is community building. And so, integrating the Anastasia community with the Alpha Vedic community, and there's many other communities that are living with purpose and intuitively living in divinity like this. One of the things that I would say that is happening on the other side of the spectrum that Anastasia talks about in the books is that much of humanity isn't even raising their own children. She talks about this term paternal impression phenomenon, which I guess someone came up with, someone in animal husbandry, when they were breeding their stallion with a female zebra and was getting, it was a male zebra and a female horse, and they weren't getting any offspring. And then they bred the mare with a stallion and they got offspring, but the offspring had faint stripes like a zebra, even though it wasn't technically the zebra offspring. And they call this paternal impression phenomenon. And a lot of what society might be suffering from is people living so outside of the natural law of morality that they're literally, raising children that might not even completely come from them.
You mentioned something very important here, which we haven't totally touched on, was natural law and morality. And this is something that Anastasia really stresses. There was someone in the chat here who just mentioned this, I love this positivity, but this new age gobbledygook is off-putting. There's really nothing quote unquote new age about these books when you read them. They are very grounded in natural law. Like we said earlier, it's almost like she's more Christian than most Christians these days. And it's very grounded in the idea that we need to get back to a moral state of what man is supposed to be if we want this to be successful. This goes back to the very beginning of actually what we talked about with what she's, with what they're trying to do in Russia, right? With what are they called? The what's that? The Motherland, the Motherland Party. Yeah. Right. Can you guys talk to that real quick, and maybe a good way to kind of sum this all up?
Yeah, so for the new age stuff, it's like, what's more practical than establishing families that live together in love? And that's how we were created to be, right?
We lost you there for a second, Gabriel. Could you repeat that?
No, what I was saying is, what's new age about? For anyone who thinks it's new age, what's new age about a family being established in love and creating a beautiful paradise around them for themselves and their children? What's more practical than that? I mean, I'd love to find an answer, but I don't think there is any.
It makes me think of Owen Benjamin and the Bear Taria stuff, and like they're very Christian, but I think if any of the Bears are listening, I think they're really going to get this stuff, right? I think it's very much in line with what Owen's pushing, which is go get your own land and focus on your family and be moral. Like this is basically Anastasia's thing. And Wes, you're a bear.
Yeah. I've been to some meetups. I definitely listen to Owen. I've been following him for a while. And he is one of the people who is intuiting this message. I don't know if he's read the books. He doesn't talk about reading them, but he's definitely living that lifestyle and raising his children in that lifestyle.
Beautiful.
He's a self-described bard. which Anastasia, those are the exact words
We didn't even
Anastasia
get to touch
says.
on that. Yeah.
That is the type of people that will be bringing the message forward for this next generation is bards. So yeah, I do think that, yeah, that community is a perfect example of people who are another group that's accused of being a cult, but it's nothing like a cult. They're just living in harmony with the true nature of reality. And you know, that's all it really is.
We've been accused of the same here, the Alpha Vedic cult.
Yeah, people email me and they say I'm a Nazi. I'm like, I'm Puerto Rican. Anyway, can I share my screen with you guys to finish off some of those images?
Yeah, you should be able to still do that.
Yeah, so look at this. You know, this image right here, this is what it's all about. This is a kid who was born on a kin's domain, frolicking and having fun through his kin's domain. What's more beautiful than this? You know what I mean? This is what it's all about. This is what the settlements look like. People are building their houses with their own hands. Look at all these happy faces and all these people building a new society. It's a new civilization that's coming into birth right now. And it's existing outside of the current system, but it's there. You know, all these people doing these wonderful things. You got kids planting the trees with their moms. Look at this. I mean, I don't know what else to say. So I just wanted to share that real quick because that's what it's really about, man. It's about family. It's about love. It's about we're creating a whole new world, you know?
And I will say this on the Nazi tip, which is just not anybody's a Nazi these days. I take honor in being called a Nazi these days.
It's pretty cool.
But the indigenous, you know, and this kind of goes back to what Bear was saying about the maritime domination of, you know, that kind of aspect of our society as well. The indigenous obviously were living like this in many ways. And I think embracing the indigenous communities as well and working with them to help them kind of revive their traditions and join us in this new focus of creating these kin domains, I think that could be a really amazing strategy for North America. If you guys have touched on trying to communicate. So Marcia Ann, who we briefly touched on, who will be coming on Alfacast, she randomly got me introduced through Cordal with the Squamish Nation, and they are creating their own sovereign bank and their own sovereign setup. And I think like working with the Squamish Sovereign Foundation there with Anastasia and us connecting, I think now we have a model that we can follow. And I think they would really be into this. And then we tie that into sovereign new forms of bartering and money and law and all the things Ron's doing. And now we have a model for a parallel society that can actually work.
Yep, that's 100%. And I agree with you on the Native American thing. To help reclaim their land and establish and bring strength back to their peoples. I'd love to get connected if you want to introduce me, but we're already connected with the Aniawea Nation. They're Cherokee. It's a Cherokee tribe. We've got a lot of support from them. And they are a sovereign nation as well. And, you know, we're getting a lot of support. They helped me set up the Anastasia Trust. It's like a foreign grantor trust and all these things. Amazing people. But yeah, I agree, 1,000,000%.
I have a feeling that a lot of those people, sorry, I'll just say this, Barry, a lot of those, the heritage are the same as Anastasia. They come from those same original bloodlines that go way back. Go ahead, Bear.
No, I was just going to close in saying that, you know, sometimes we have a tendency to beat ourselves up for straying so far from just nature and general natural law. But if you look at the full circle that's now being closed as we come around the bend once again, we have a newfound appreciation for what we lost. And I think that's all part of the process. So we left innocence and now we're coming back to innocence, but with eyes wide open, and also in a way where we won't sabotage ourselves again in the future or let somebody else take advantage of us. So here we are. This is the best of times right now. And while other people are waiting for the other shoe to drop, I just think this is the best time in history. And boy, I wouldn't miss it for the world. So thank you guys so much for being with us.
Thank you. Thank you. It's an honor and a pleasure.
And the best ways to get a hold of both of you guys, websites, all that, they will be in the show notes below too.
Yeah, our website is anastasia.foundation. You can check out all about our work there. We're doing all kinds of things. We've got we're doing in-person events. We've got a Telegram group, Facebook group. We've got our own social network platform, the Ringing Cedars community platform, where you can see readers on a map near you. There's readers groups on there. You can find your soulmate, message people, all that. It's all there. We do community calls. We've got regular Zoom calls happening every week, guided imagery, readers groups, Kins domain design calls. We've got a European community call for any Europeans out there. We're expanding internationally. We're going to have leaders in all these different countries. We're doing in-person events as soon as I move back to the USA. We've got regional ambassadors now who are going to be doing meetups in their local regions across the United States and one in Europe. So we're going to be doing all kinds of in-person events. We've got all kinds of stuff happening. We're doing the land patent event with Ron Gibson in August. We're just doing a lot. So, you know, go sign up on our email list. We're also most likely going to be republishing the entire series of books because they're currently out of print. That's why if you try to get them, you're going to see that they are very expensive. It's unfortunate, but I'm working to solve that problem. I've got a round of funding coming in very soon, which is going to enable me to get started on all that stuff. So we're going to republish the books at the lowest cost that I possibly can for everybody. So yeah, go check out our website, go sign up on the email list. You know, it's only just beginning, man.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. I forgot to touch on that. That's a very, very important aspect because we get hit up a lot. Where do I get the whole series of books? Where do I get this? So I think, guys, yeah, go support the foundation so we can get these reprinted and get these out to everyone in the States and Canada and the West, English-speaking countries, and then also, of course, have them, you know, translated into Spanish and to Chinese everywhere because this is a global movement. This is a worldwide movement. And then also, you were saying real quick, there was 2 new books in Russian or something. There was some new stuff that's recently come out.
Yeah. So they updated book 1. So there's a 4th edition now, and there's a whole bunch of, it was updated in 2020 or 2021. I think 2021. And there's a bunch of new chapters about things that are happening in Russia right now. Anastasia's son, you know, and what he's doing right now, which we didn't get to touch on. And all these other things. So, but it's just in Russian. There's also a book 10. For those of you who don't know, you're probably going to see the first 9 books are the most well known, but there's also a book 10 that's out of print too. So make sure that if you've read the series already, make sure you read book 10. It's all in PDF form. Come into our Telegram group. I'll hook you up with the PDF. You can print it out ideally. But yeah, until we're able to print it all again, everything's out of print. So tough situation, but yeah.
Cool. And then Wes, any updates on your end, what you're up to?
Oh, I would just leave people with maybe one last example of how Anastasia bridges mythology with practicality. Is we mentioned the Owen Benjamin community, made me think of dragons. Walter Smith is a big dragon fan, and Anastasia explains dragons as being these ancient beasts that had flint in their mouth, and similar to the cow, like where they have a gaseous stomach, the flint in their mouth would allow them to turn the gas into fire. And so there you go. Those are dragons explained. Otherwise, you know, I'm not online that much. I mean, I do, you know, use our platforms, but I'll try to meet me in the real world. Catch me outside, guys.
Yeah, Wes is in the real world more than on the digital. If you come on the digital, you'll find me.
I protect my child's screen time.
And yeah, the door's always open for you guys up here. We'd love to see you sometime. Come hang out, jump in the river with us in the summer. Help us out in the gardens. I'd love to see you.
Yeah, I'd love to.
Yeah, maybe we can do a workshop down the line and Anastasia get together up here. That would be really fun. And of course, I want to connect on the larger Music and Sky Festival, which we're going to do everything in our power to get Bear there to talk because he's one of the most asked people to speak on stage. But this will be in the fall, and to have a whole Anastasia booth, I really want to have you guys there. I think this is one of my priorities, is getting this information out. So, and that is the perfect crowd, of course. They're all hippie, you know, new school hippie, not wearing shoes, but also not, you know, brainwashed. collectivists. So, hey guys, this has been amazing. Thanks so much. I hope you guys all enjoyed this chat. If you did, please give us a thumbs up, share it. This really helps us get the information out. Go support these guys' work at Anastasia.Foundation, and we will see you next work with Greg Paul from the Law for Mankind. The hits just keep coming, man. So I love this. All these shows we're doing, they all work, they all like synchronize in with each other. So, okay, thanks guys. We'll see you on Telegram. I didn't even say that beginning of the show. Our community, t.me/Alpha Vedic on Telegram, on Discord, which is actually a really fun alternative. Telegram's more of just a constant flow of chat. Discord is great. It's more like a classic forum. Great info on there. alphavedic.com/Discord. And you can support us on Patreon right now, patreon.com/Alpha Vedic. However, we are moving off that. And of course, alphavedic.com. If you're in the States, you can really support us and your health and your vitality by buying our products, which are all handmade on the farm. And yeah, that's about it. So we'll see you next week, guys. Love you all. And remember to get outside, get your feet in the dirt, go plant something. Mother Nature is the greatest teacher, and she's here for us and we're here for her. Love you all.
Right.
Cheers.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.